Hello, welcome to Map Business Online. I'm just going to show a little bit of territory creation for a specific request. So the first thing I'm going to do, using the Map and Data tab, looking at a blank screen on Map Business Online with my street data, which comes selected automatically, I'm going to turn on my state layer, just for reference purposes, and then I'm going to turn on my zip code layer. Now the idea here is we want to build a territory in a specific area. And so the specific area is around the southeast South Dakota boundary with Nebraska and Iowa. So I'm going to use my little zoom tool here, which is this little button. Looks like a magnifying glass over on the navigation bar. And I'm just going to draw a little rectangle in that corner of the world. Then I'm going to turn off that tool. So now I've got my zip code layer turned on, my state layer turned on, which is largely just for reference. So I could take my state layer and edit it a little bit. I don't need to, but I like to do it just to make sure I've got a clear view. So I'm changing the colors of the boundaries of the state layer. So I'm going in and clicking that little edit gear on the state layer in Map and Data, and then I'm changing that boundary color to black. Now, likewise, I can do the same for my zip code layer. And oops, I turned it off, you see, and I check it back on. And I'm going to make my zip code layer transparent. I'm going to leave the boundary colors just as they are. That transparency sees through the states and the zip codes. So there we have the area of interest. Now, up here is what we call a polygon search tool. So this is the tool we're going to use to create a territory, and it starts with that little drop down. And we're going to pick that polygon tool as opposed to a radius or a drive time search. We're going to go with a polygon search. Now, the zip codes are all noted here. You can make the zip code numbers show up if you're really concerned about that. And the way we do that is by working with the labeling, and we're going to go down and just change when the labels show up, so that the labels show up when you're a little bit less zoomed in than all the way in. So now you've got some reference for labels. You could always put a zip code in up here, which will zoom you into where a zip code might be. But this polygon tool should give you a rough feeling. So you've got it selected when it's green. So now it's not selected, now it's selected. And I'm just going to run that through my area of interest. And so we're looking at, just referring to my email, southeast Dakota, east Nebraska, and extreme western Iowa. So I'm going to just assume it's something like this. It's a rural area in the U.S. Bring it back to the beginning. That highlights all of your area of interest. We're going to search zip codes and turn those in blue, that light blue, into a territory. It lets us name it. We're going to call it Territory 2000. Let's call it 2016. So that was where we were in 2016. It color codes in all of those zip codes, and it pulls up this data window, which shows you all this information. Don't worry too much about the data window. It's not meant to overwhelm. It's just data. It's what we think is important. And I'm going to go in and change in this little color box that dark green to something a little bit more differentiated from the light green in the background. And then I'm going to delete my polygon. Don't need it anymore. Now, there are a couple of more items of setup that we can do for our territories. And one of those is to make the territories transparent. So you go into the Map and Data editing function, click territory options, and make them transparent. You can also allow them to intersect and overlap, which may or may not be important in your case. Now, to change any of these zip codes that you've selected, so you've created your 2016 territory, you can say, well, I missed that zip code, and you could select it and then click that little button, add that to Territory 2016. You can select more than one. Hold down that Shift key after you select the first one, and you can go in and select all the ones that you'd like to include. Click that little blue puzzle piece and add them. Now, for adding additional areas for a map for 2017 or 2018, my recommendation would be that you create another map. So we would save this map as My Territory 2016, and then create a new map for your Territory 2017. That would be my recommendation. Now you could add, maybe you've got some targeted zip codes that you could go in like this, hold the shift key down and say, okay, in 2017, I'm going to add all of these new zip codes. And we can put them in different places here. They don't have to be contiguous, but once you're done selecting them, you could click that create and then create new. Instead of adding two, you could create new and say 2017 new zips targeted. You could do that, which would give you sort of another area to focus on. You could kind of make it highlighted in black or something so that it's easily seen. So that's another way you could do it and kind of solve it all in one map. But my recommendation would be to go in and make another map for 2017. Now the legend is here. It shows up once you start building territories. It's editable. So you're able to go in and say, I don't want my states to be labeled on the legend, and I'm going to change my zip codes to name is going to name here. It's Rich. So we could say Rich Territory. Get that function to show. I'm sorry, for some reason it's not typing. There we go. Rich's Territory, we'll say 2016, and then you've got those two territories labeled on the map. You can update the legend now. It shows you, what that looks like. You can fine tune your zoom level and get your map just the way you want it in terms of labeling and legend and zoom level, and then save that map view as a JPEG or a PNG file, and that can be put into a PowerPoint. So you'll have a .png file or a .jpeg file in your desktop, and you can use that as a PowerPoint presentation. But that's how I would do it. Go to mapbusinessonline.com, take our free trial.